All right, so you guys know how much I love to dig into, like, really thought-provoking stuff, right? And you sending over those bits from Our Daily Bread, that's, like, right up my alley. This whole idea of there being signs, that a breakthrough is coming. I'm hooked already.
Yeah, it's a fascinating concept.
It really is.
Yeah.
So we're talking about this Christian podcast, and they're saying certain things, certain experiences could be signals, I guess, from a higher power. Like a heads up that good stuff is on the horizon. Now, we're not here to tell you what to believe, but just unpacking how this podcast presents these signs, I think, can give us some really cool insights into, resilience, personal growth, that kind of thing. What do you think?
Absolutely. It's like tapping into that very human need to make sense of our experiences, to find meaning, especially in the tough times.
Totally. And speaking of tough times, the first sign they talk about, it's kind of unexpected. They're saying going through a rough patch, a string of challenges, that could actually be a sign that something good is about to happen.
It seems counterintuitive, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's actually something to it. Even in psychology, there's this idea of post-traumatic growth.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, sometimes going through something really difficult, as awful as it is in the moment, can lead to some pretty amazing personal development on the other side.
I can see that. So it's like what feels like a setback might actually be setting the stage for something incredible. And the podcast actually uses some pretty powerful biblical examples to illustrate this. Like they talk about Joseph, who was, get this, sold into slavery by his own brothers. Talk about a bad day, right?
Yeah, that's about as rough as it gets.
But then, hold on, he ends up becoming this incredibly influential leader in Egypt. So it's like, talk about a turnaround.
It's a powerful story, and it speaks to that idea that sometimes what seems like the worst thing that could happen can actually be the catalyst for something truly amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just a nice story either. Like I was saying, the concept of post-traumatic growth is well researched.
Yeah.
Studies show that people who have gone through significant hardship, they often report positive changes, increased resilience, a deeper appreciation for life, stronger relationships, you name it.
Wow. So it's like those challenges, even when they feel unbearable, might actually be shaping us into stronger, more resilient versions of ourselves. That's kind of empowering when you think about it that way.
It really is. It's about reframing our perspective, looking for the growth opportunities even in the midst of difficulty.
Absolutely. And speaking of reframing perspectives, this next sign the podcast talks about really resonated with me. That feeling of restlessness, like you're meant for something more. Have you ever felt that? Like a deep yearning for, I don't know, something different, something bigger? Oh, absolutely. That feeling is so relatable. And, it's interesting how they frame that as a positive thing, that inner yearning. In a lot of spiritual traditions, you see this concept of divine discontent, which basically suggests that dissatisfaction can be a catalyst for growth and transformation. It's like that restlessness is a signal that you're capable of more, that you're meant for something greater.
I love that divine discontent. So instead of resisting that feeling of wanting more, you lean into it, trust that it might be guiding you towards something amazing.
Exactly.
And they use some great examples from the Bible to illustrate this point. Like Moses, right? The guy who felt this call to lead the Israelites out of Egypt. I mean, he was living a pretty comfortable life in the palace, but he still felt this pull towards something more, something bigger than himself.
Right, and that pull led him to answer a calling that would change the course of history.
Totally. And then there's Abraham, who packed up and left his home, his entire life, to journey to a completely unknown land, all because of this deep inner prompting. Talk about a leap of faith. It's like the ultimate follow your gut moment.
Right, and it's amazing how those stories, even though they're ancient, they still resonate with us today, even if we don't interpret them in a strictly religious way. I mean, who hasn't felt that pull to take a leap of faith, even if it means stepping outside of their comfort zone?
And you know what's wild about this whole follow your gut thing? It's not just some woo-woo concept,
Yeah.
There's actually a ton of research now in neuroscience that shows our intuition plays a huge role in how we make decisions.
Yeah.
Like our subconscious is always processing information, picking up on stuff that our conscious mind totally misses. And then it sends us these signals, those gut feelings. It's pretty amazing.
Whoa, so you're saying our bodies might actually be cluing us into our breakthroughs even before our brains can really grasp what's happening? That's kind of mind-blowing.
It really is. Speaking of mind-blowing, though, the next sign this podcast talks about, it's something I think we can all relate to. Unexplained delays. You're working towards a goal, putting in the work, but things just aren't happening on your timeline. It's like, come on, universe.
Yeah. Yes. The worst. And it's so hard not to get impatient, especially these days when everything seems to move so fast.
For sure. But the way this podcast reframes delays, it's pretty cool. They're suggesting these holdups. They're not random. They're actually opportunities for like divine preparation. Like the universe is working behind the scenes, getting everything lined up just right.
Okay, gotta admit, I kind of love that perspective. Because it's true, it's so easy to get caught up in that frustration of waiting. What if those delays really are setting us up for something even better than we could have planned?
Right. And psychologically, there's something really comforting about believing that things are unfolding as they should, even if we don't get the timing. It can really help with that anxiety that comes with waiting.
It's like instead of stressing about the delay, you trust that it's all part of a bigger plan, you know? And speaking of bigger plans, the podcast uses some really interesting stories from the Bible to make this point. They talk about David, who was chosen to be king when he was still young.
Oh yeah, David.
But then, get this, he had to wait years, literal years, before he actually became king. And during that time, he faced all sorts of obstacles, setbacks, you name it. But the podcast argues that those delays, they weren't just random bad luck. They were chances for him to develop the strength and the wisdom he would need to be an effective leader. Pretty cool, huh?
Totally. It's like that saying, good things come to those who wait.
Right. Or maybe even good things come to those who can embrace the wait.
Yes. And it's not just about passively biding your time, embracing the wait. It means using that time to learn and grow so that when the opportunity does finally show up, you're totally ready to make the most of it.
So those delays, they're actually prime time for like self-improvement. Instead of getting frustrated, you can focus on becoming the best version of yourself. I love that.
Me too.
Yeah.
It's like those delays are a gift in a way, a chance to invest in yourself and get ready for the amazing things to come. And speaking of investing in yourself, that takes us to the next sign the podcast talks about. This one's all about personal growth, even when it's tough.
It's funny, right? We talk about investing in our finances, our careers, but investing in our own personal growth, that can feel kind of vague. But this podcast, they're big on those experiences that challenge us to grow, even when it's tough. In fact, they say facing situations that test our faith, that's actually the fourth sign of a breakthrough on the horizon.
And what's interesting is that lines up perfectly with what we know about resilience, about growth in general. It's those times when we push ourselves outside our comfort zone, face our fears, do things that seem scary. That's how we discover how strong we really are.
Totally. Makes you wonder, if everything's always easy, are we really growing? Where's the challenge in that?
Exactly. There's that saying, smooth seas never made a skilled sailor. And the podcast, they use the story of Peter walking on water to get this point across. Talk about a leap of faith.
No kidding. And even though Peter starts to sink when doubt creeps in, the message seems to be that even attempting something that seems impossible, that shows you're willing to grow, to embrace the unknown, just trying is a victory in itself.
100%.
Yeah.
And there's another layer to this whole stepping out in faith thing. It's about trusting that something bigger than us has our back, even if we can't see the whole path ahead. Letting go of control, that's what lets us be brave, even when we're scared.
Oh, I love that. We don't have to have it all figured out to move forward. Sometimes the bravest thing is just trusting the process and taking that next step.
Exactly. And speaking of things that can feel, both empowering and mysterious, the last sign this podcast brings up is all about those times when things just work out, like almost magically. When you experience unexpected help or things just fall into place.
Like when the perfect person enters your life at the perfect time or a door opens that you never even saw coming, it's like the universe is conspiring to help you succeed.
It's a nice thought, right? And there's actually more and more research coming out about the power of positive thinking. When we focus on gratitude, when we're open to receiving good things, it shifts our energy. We can actually attract more good things into our lives.
Hold on, so you're saying it's not just wishful thinking, there's actual science that says expecting good things can actually make them happen.
Absolutely. And this whole thing about unexpected blessings makes me think about synchronicity. Those meaningful coincidences, they seem too perfect to just be random.
Right, like when you're thinking about someone and then they call you out of the blue, or you stumble on that exact piece of information you needed at that exact moment.
That's it. Some people might say it's just luck, but others see those moments as signs, like messages, nudges in the right direction. It all comes down to how we interpret those events.
Totally. So if we're thinking about how to actually apply these signs to our own lives, even if we're not following a particular religious doctrine, what are your thoughts?
Great question. I think the biggest takeaway here is that our experiences, the good and the bad, they usually have a much deeper meaning than we realize. If we pay attention to those experiences, think about the lessons we're learning, how they're shaping us, that's where the good stuff is.
So it's like those tough times, those might be opportunities for growth in disguise, those delays that drive us crazy. Maybe they're setting us up for something even better down the line. And those moments where something amazing happens out of the blue, could that be the universe's way of nudging us toward our purpose?
That's exactly it. It's about trusting that there's an intelligence at work here. Whether you call it divine intervention, synchronicity, or just the way things are connected, it can guide us toward reaching our full potential.
Love it. It's a great reminder to be open to possibilities, to trust the journey, and never underestimate the power of a little bit of faith in ourselves, in something bigger, and in the unfolding of our own unique paths.
Beautifully said.
Well, that about wraps up our deep dive into the signs of an impending breakthrough, at least for today. We covered some really fascinating ideas, the psychology of post-traumatic growth, the power of positive thinking, even a little bit of wisdom from the Bible.
It's been such a thought-provoking conversation.
It really has. As we sign off, I want to leave you with this. What if those challenges you're facing, those delays that are testing your patience, those moments of unexpected goodness that take your breath away, what if those are all signs pointing you towards something truly amazing, something your heart deeply desires, something that has the power to change your life in ways you can't even imagine? Hold on to that question. See where it leads you. Until next time, stay curious, everybody.